Hello, everybody. Welcome to our FITT Forum this morning. We're doing a further session on engaging with Gen Z with a particular focus on social media and its use in the recruitment and the welcoming of people to our organizations. My name is Ben Bullman. I am a tutor and the program delivery director at First Intuition. And I was thinking this morning, I spend quite a lot of my life with Gen Zers. 50% of my household fall into Generation Z. And actually at work, I spend lots of my time in the classes, either teaching myself and observing classes where I would say probably getting on towards 90% of our students fall into that Generation Z category. So I wouldn't class myself as an expert, but somebody that does see the challenges. I see the challenges on both sides. If I'm honest, sometimes it seems like a different language that I am being spoken to in. Lots of different slang terms coming in, lots of technology references. But I also do my best to reassure the Gen Z students that I engage with that actually we've got their backs. I think one of our unique positions is we can actually pull two groups of people in a general consensus to meet in the middle. And as much as I went online this morning and we still see quite negative comments about Generation Z, I found a stat that said only 31% of people have got a favourable opinion of them as a generation. To me, as a statistician, that means 69% of people either have got no opinion or think quite negatively of them. I think they are better than that. They have got so much potential. I see it every day when I engage with them, and we need to do our bit to hopefully welcome them into the world of work. So I'm going to shut up. I'm going to hand over to our first guest. We've got some fantastic speakers lined up for you this morning, and I'm going to introduce our first one, Shoshana Davis, the Fairy Job Mother. I love the title, Shoshana. I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Really excited to be here. It's a relatively early start, so I've been spending the morning trying to give myself some energy. I was at a concert last night, and anyone that's been to the O2 Arena knows how much of a nightmare it is to actually get home afterwards. So yeah, went to bed a lot later than I was expecting, but nonetheless, I'm fueled on caffeine and ready to come and deliver this presentation for you. Before I move forward, I just wanted to check, can everyone see my slides? Can everyone see what I'm sharing? Correct? Perfect. Okay, so let me just get going then. So yes, so who am I? So my name is Shoshana Davis. I am founder of Fairy Job Mother, which is essentially a one-stop shop community for young people on all things careers and confidence at work. But then on the flip side is also a consultancy where I work with employers and organizations to help them understand young people and work better, essentially. So I pretty much started my company in a very different sense about 2.5 years ago, mainly effectively stemming from a frustration I had at the lack of good and accessible career advice for young people during and post education. So as somebody that failed their exams, pretty much got kicked out of school and somehow managed to blag a fancy corporate job. Once I was in that corporate job, and actually beforehand, I had no idea how to position myself for a job. Then once I was in the job, I had no idea how to progress. I had no idea how to have difficult conversations. I had no idea how to do all these things, and spent several years actually figuring these things out, and luckily managed to land a leadership position at a Fortune 500 tech company where I was leading kind of global teams and initiatives, arguably pretty early on in my career. Learned a lot along the way and thought I had lots of knowledge to share. So I started sharing career advice online for young people and built a little bit of a community from doing that whilst working in corporate for about 2.5 years. So I worked as a kind of micro influencer with lots of different organizations to help them get in front of young people. I was able to monetize my platform via digital products, workshops, etc. So I did that for about 2.5 years. And then effectively through all the work that I was actually doing with young people, and as some employers started to creep into it, I really noticed there was a big disconnect between the two. And young people weren't really understanding what organizations want, but then equally vice versa, organizations weren't necessarily understanding what young people wanted. So I saw a gap there. And yeah, as of nearly a year ago today, I actually decided to leave my full-time job and focus on building out the kind of consultancy B2B side of my business. So yeah, it's been a very crazy ride, but I'm really excited to be here. And yeah, these are just some of the employers that I've worked with on this slide and that I'm currently working with as clients. And then I've also been featured in some news publications as well, where I'm shouting for Gen Z. I'm trying to dispel those annoying narratives that we're seeing in the media that were just mentioned. So yeah, that is me, and I'm very excited to be here today. Okay, so now you know a little bit about me. I would actually love to know who my audience is. So if you wouldn't mind, if you could please just drop your name in the chat and what you do, and let's see who we've got here. I'm sure we've got a big mixture of people, so I'm going to give everyone about 30 seconds or so to do that, and then I'll move on. Okay, so we've got Karen Caswell. Oh, Karen, I think I've seen you on LinkedIn. Hello. We have Simon, talent acquisition from Bidwells, Rhiannon, program manager at NHS. We've got Anne-Marie Scott, Katie from M Group Services, Peter from UCAS, hello. Maisie, Jess, okay, we've got lots of people coming through. Lucy, Melissa, hello. I think we've spoken before. Good to see you again. Joanne, lovely. Okay, got lots of things coming through. So I'm just going to move on in respect of time because I'm sure you've seen we've got a very jam-packed agenda. But before I actually get into things, what would you say is your kind of experience level / understanding of Gen Z currently? Is it kind of basic understanding level, as in like I work with some of them, I think I know a little bit, but I don't, medium level, or are you someone that kind of feels pretty confident and thinks you know a lot about Gen Z? Drop your thoughts in the chat and let's see what we've got here. Okay, so we've got improving from Pete. That's fair. Good understanding, knowledge gap, our recruitment side, nice. Work with them a lot, still didn't understand them. That's fair enough. Anne-Marie, what medium, work with apprentices and students. Anybody else? Is there anybody else that feels super confident? Parent of them, work with them, enjoy their company, concern for them. Fair enough. Very, very valid. And we've got Andy, work with them, challenging but rewarding. Absolutely. Okay, so we've got a mixed bag. Some of you definitely have a stronger understanding than others, but I'm hoping at least, if not by the end of my presentation, at the end of the overall session, you'll at least walk away with one new thing that you've learned. Okay, so obviously, as I'm first up today, I think it's really important for me to set the scene. Some of you may know this information, some of you may not, but I think when you are talking about a specific group of people, it's really important to just set the scene on kind of who they are and some of the things that are happening for them right now. So obviously, we've all seen these articles in the media, right? Every single day, as previously mentioned, there is pretty much something new. And yeah, it's getting exhausting at this point. But I think the really important thing to note here is whether we realize it or not, we are all consuming this media, right? And whether we pay lots of attention to the articles or whether we just skim the headlines, regardless of whether we notice it or not, this is creating thoughts and this is potentially creating biases in our head about a potential generation, which then a lot of the time we are looking for ways to validate at work. And that's nothing bad. That's just what humans do. So it's really important to actually remember that, and that we are actually subconsciously being influenced a lot of the time. But based on the kind of rubbish articles, who actually are Gen Z? So again, Gen Z are a whole generation. So these are just some statements which summarize the broader generation. Obviously, there are anomalies. Obviously, every individual is different, but these are some of the key themes, right? So obviously, Gen Z, apart from Gen Alpha, are one of the youngest and most ethnically diverse generations in the UK. Everybody says that Gen Z are digital natives and they grew up with technology, which is completely true. However, there is actually a pretty high digital exclusion rate in the UK currently. So it's predicted that 5.8 million young people are actually predicted to be digitally excluded by 2032. So what that means is there are actually millions of people in the UK that currently do not have access to internet and don't have access to a phone. So we actually, as employers, as organizations, we tend to have this huge assumption that Gen Z know what they're doing with technology, but chances are a lot of them likely don't, especially when things like diversity are improving amongst organizations, which is great, but we're now going to be bringing different groups of people into work who maybe don't have the same experiences and aren't from the same background. So I think that's a really important point to remember and to remember. And then finally, I would say their identity has really strongly been shaped by things like the digital age, so tech, climate change, climate anxiety, shift of financial landscape, things like the cost of living, and then also finally COVID-19, right? So apprentices that we're kind of hiring now, God, it feels like COVID was ages ago, but they're kind of around that age group where COVID started. They would have been about year 9 or 10. So it is a reality that a lot of them potentially have never actually worked in a corporate environment at all. Usually we would have that kind of 2 weeks work experience where they'd at least go into a company or go into some kind of organization and have that experience. A lot of them didn't. On the flip side, for graduates, they missed out on some of those key kind of internship opportunities throughout their studies. So we really are actually having young people come into the workforce today that potentially haven't ever worked before. So our expectations of what we expect from them should have changed, but a lot of the time they haven't actually changed. And I think just a really important point is, as a result of these, in general, Gen Z are quite an anxious generation. So according to Randstad, 7 in 10 of them have been diagnosed with either a long-term mental health condition or are currently experiencing short-term mental health right now. 6 in 10 have felt anxious about the environment in the past month. And 50% of them are currently living paycheck to paycheck, right? So a combination of these things creates anxiety. So a lot of the time, some of the themes that we are actually seeing at work, there's a strong probability that these could be potentially caused by things like mental health and anxiety. Thinking about it from a Maslow's hierarchy of needs perspective, if your kind of basic needs to live aren't met, as a human, you are psychologically unable to be thinking about anything else, right? So we might be wondering, why are some of our young employees unmotivated? Why are they struggling? Some of these data points could potentially be reasons why. And what are we doing as businesses and employers to support them? And finally, before I move on to actually the meat of the presentation, really important to just quickly go through what makes them tick. So obviously we've been through some trends. These are 4 things which I think Gen Z likes. So I think the first one is genuine, authentic connection. Yes, many Gen Z do spend lots of time online, but I think as a result of that, when they do spend that in-person time, they actually have a really good gauge of whether someone is genuine or not and whether they have their best interests at heart. So they have a really strong desire for genuine, authentic connections, a huge desire to feel successful or feel fulfilled, which is a great thing. A lot of this is potentially mainly fueled by social media. So you're seeing lots of different lifestyles on social media constantly, lots of people earning vastly different amounts of money. And there is a comparison element that comes into that. Mixed with COVID, where, we lost 2 to 3 years of our life, and we're constantly trying to catch up because we feel like we're left behind. So a lot of the time, these feelings of, I hear from employers, oh, my young employees, they want to walk before they can run. They've not even kind of mastered what they're doing. That is potentially fueled by some of these kind of constant feelings of being left behind and playing catch up. So we need to be able to kind of leverage that ambition and motivation and help channel it in the right way. Hugely value flexibility and independence. Obviously, at work within an organization, flexibility and independence do come with time. And Gen Z are fine with that, right? You just need to communicate that to them in the right way, which a lot of the time isn't communicated. And then that's sometimes where problems arise. And then finally, I would say in general, not everyone, but lots of young people are interested in making a positive impact on the world. So now let's move into, I'm just keeping an eye on the time, let's move into the meat of the presentation. So let's talk a little bit about how to actually engage Gen Z from like an attraction perspective. So we've got lots of amazing speakers here today. So I'm going to leave the mechanics of how to the experts like Holly, Josh, and UCAS, because they do amazing things in this space. And I'm just going to briefly touch upon some things that you really need to keep in mind when engaging Gen Z across socials. So the first one that is super key is know the right time to engage, right? So young people have lots of things going on, whether they're at school, whether they're at university, whether they're at college. And a lot of the time, one of the things that I think employers don't necessarily do the best job of is they are so set on, you know, the recruitment cycle and recruitment deadlines, and they've always been this way. But a lot of the time, their deadlines are actually clashing with things like exams, etc. So I think it's really important to remember to know the right time to engage. And if you're dropping a job role bang in the middle of exam season and you expect amazing engagement, you expect lots of applications, that potentially isn't going to be the place, right? So definitely knowing the right time to engage. And also remember that potentially some of the young people that we are targeting, they may not have the same confidence or key social skills that young people from previous years had due to lack of experiences. So it's really important to kind of create safe spaces and areas that they feel comfortable. The next one I would say is provide value to build trust first. So a lot of employers love to just, we've dropped a role, this is why you should apply, etc. But especially if you're like a smaller company or not a huge company, nobody actually knows who you are. And there are so many other companies to choose from. So I strongly, strongly recommend instead of shoving the roles you're recruiting for immediately in front of a young person's face, consider actually providing value first to build trust before application season, right? Because think about it. I'm a business owner. I'm not only going to talk about my business when I've got something to sell or when I'm launching a product, right? There's pre-launch activities that I do. There's hype I need to build up. And it's the same from an employer's perspective. So things like day in the life videos, office tours, trends, general application tips, these are all going to help create hype, but then also provide value first so that when it does come round to application season, that young person is going to remember the value you've provided for them and the connection and trust they've built with you, and they're then going to want to actually apply for your role. The next one is be transparent. So be transparent about things like salary and also progression. I personally don't see how not being transparent benefits either parties, because if you're applying for a job, a young person applies, it gets all the way to offer stage and the salary is lower than they've expected and is not going to help them be able to live, they're going to drop out. You've then wasted your time. Equally, if you've not been transparent about progression, they're going to get into that role and they're going to feel frustrated. They're going to potentially leave. So again, both parties' times are effectively wasted. So it's really important to be as transparent as you can on things like salary and also progression. And then finally, obviously, find positive role models that they know or can relate to is definitely key. And I know Holly and Josh are going to speak about this in a little bit. So I'm going to move on as I think I'm kind of running out of time. And the final point I just wanted to touch upon, as I know in this webinar, we have a real mixture of different organizations, different sizes. And I think one of the main challenges I hear from employers a lot of the time is, you know, we don't have a social media page or we aren't allowed to have a social media page, which is valid and it's fine based on your business. That makes sense. So I do actually just want to highlight that to attract Gen Z on social media, you don't actually have to have your own company's social media page. Obviously, that is preference. But actually, brand messages, when shared via an employee's own channels, are shared 24 more times, because obviously they're shared from an individual rather than a brand page, and people connect with people. So really challenge you to actually have a think about how can you empower your existing apprentices, graduates, their managers, and other employees to actually become advocates for your brand online themselves. And really honestly want to challenge you to think about that. I actually have a lot of background in this. I ran a program like this in my corporate career. So, but yeah, challenge you and want you to have a think about that one, as it's really key that you don't have to necessarily have a social media page yourself as a company. And also there are lots of amazing platforms like Apprentivia, Get My First Job, etc., that can help promote those roles as well across their channels. Okay, so we are coming to the end of time here. So let's quickly recap. So I gave a quick overview of Gen Z at the beginning, but I think honestly my main takeaway is, Gen Z aren't aliens. We all actually ultimately want the same thing, right? We want to be in a job we enjoy. We want to earn enough money so we can actually live. We want to be in a role that we are able to progress in. So we aren't actually that different. Gen Z potentially have different ways of communicating that and are more kind of out there and less willing to take crap that previous generations have potentially had. But in terms of what we actually want at work and from work, we're not that different at all. So they're not these aliens from outer space. Next thing I would say is know when to engage and provide value first. So we spoke about this. Make sure you're engaging at the right time and make sure you are also providing value first. Don't just assume, oh, I've dropped a job, they're going to apply because, I've got a really good salary or because I'm a company name they'll know. There's thousands of employers out there that have been engaging them and building that trust for months before dropping their roles. Be transparent and keep it relatable for sure. And then finally, and really challenge you to think about this one, existing employees will be and are your biggest advocates. And yes, that is all from me. So I don't know if we have any time for questions, but yes, I've included my LinkedIn, so feel free to scan that and connect with me and I can answer anything now or afterwards.
Shoshana, thank you so much. What a great start. Real positive energy and massive guts to go and set up your own business. Well done for doing so and coming this morning to share it with us. I think you really started off with all of the negative publicity. And I really liked your quote at the end there. Gen Z are not aliens. We are much more connected to them than we actually first believe, I think. I see lots of that. And one of the thoughts I have is that not only do we see that and it influences our decision, actually Gen Z see that stuff. And something the Gen Zers I engage with quite a bit talk about is manifesting. And I think we need to do something to not manifest it into what could be a natural conclusion, just reading all of the negative hype, actually reversing it and looking at all the positive stuff. Thank you so much for joining us. As you say, we have got a tight schedule because we need to be done by 10 o'clock today. So I'm going to hand over. Shoshana, thank you once again. And I'm going to introduce our next speaker now. So I'd like to introduce to everybody Holly Hobbs, Gen Z branding strategist at Apprentivia. Holly, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for inviting me. And yes, you got the brand name right. I'm so pleased. So today I'm going to be helping you guys understand what Gen Z look for from employer branding advertisements better, and also the type of content that you should be distributing via social media channels if you've got them, or if not, how to do that and how to attract them basically. So I'm just going to share my screen. Here we go. So, as I said, that's what I'm going to be doing today. But firstly, I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. So I am actually a previous degree apprentice at Microsoft. I really struggled to get into that apprenticeship. I faced over 30 rejections before getting it because I didn't have any relatable role models to look up to that went down this route. My college tend to focus a lot on the university path, so had to go through multiple rejections to figure out what actually takes a successful application. Off the back of that, when I got into the apprenticeship, I started to use social media to document my journey as an apprentice. And that's where I started my business, Apprentivia, because I realised that I wasn't the only one struggling with this route, struggling to understand it, struggling to navigate the apprenticeship application process. And so as a result, founded my business by starting 2 ebooks. I wrote 2 ebooks that overviewed the whole application process. And then I also now create content with employers like the ones you can see on screen, because I also realise that there's a huge gap for employers to create content on social media to advertise their apprenticeships, to convey that sense of relatability, which I'm going to go into. And as a result of that, I now have amassed 39,200 followers on TikTok, all looking for an apprenticeship. So it's really exciting. So I wanted to talk you through today a little bit about their Gen Z's priorities and what they look for from an advertisement online. But firstly, wanted to throw a statistic at you that 86% of Gen Z are actually using social media when searching for a job. And that's a huge, huge number. And it just shows the importance and the significance of starting to utilize social media in your processes and leaning into the resistance. I know sometimes it can be a bit of a risk for some employers to use social media, but you don't have to go all in, you don't have to go all ham, you don't have to invest loads and loads of money into a massive campaign. You can start in small incremental steps. So yeah, it just shows the importance of it. So I wanted to give you an idea of their priorities and the type of thing, as I said, that they're looking out for when looking at these different advertisements. So the first one, these are my 4 Ps, by the way. I call first one personalization. So Gen Z have grown up in an age where they're constantly in these algorithms on social media. TikTok is an example. The algorithm is learning what that person likes, and so it's showing them more things of what they like. There's now applications, obviously, like Spotify, that will recommend you songs that you would probably like. These applications that they use are personalized, so they're expecting more personalized experiences as a result. So you can do that via integrating your apprentices, sort of what Shoshana was saying, into your advertisements already, because they can relate to those people. And as a result, they are getting inspiration from them. They're getting motivation. If they can see someone that they can relate to on your advertisements, they're going to ask themselves, well, if they can do it, why can't I? Rather than just having your job description, integrating that personable element is super, super important. And they want to see that you understand them as a generation. They also, touching on this personalization point, as I said at the start from my journey, apprenticeships are this unconventional route still compared to university. So as a result, it can be a struggle to navigate the process, and it can be a struggle to understand the application process and things like that. So it's really important that you understand that. And attraction for me and for my clients that I work with isn't just about videos, it isn't just about social media, it's about understanding that they can really, really struggle to navigate this process. So understanding their challenges is really important as part of this personalization part, and then helping them navigate the process with application tips, with, as I said before, showcasing people that have already been through it in your organization, your apprentices, and telling them your story. So for example, I did a shoot with BT Group, and one of the videos that I filmed was with one of their apprentices that had already applied last year to their organization, got rejected, did an apprenticeship somewhere else, and then came back. And that video's got like over 50,000 views now, but it's really relatable because people are going through so many of those rejections. So that organization is acknowledging that, and they're saying, look, it's not personal, you know, don't give up, and it's giving these messages out there. They also want to experience a sense of purpose. So they want to see that the work that they'll do has an impact within your organization. Also, they want to see progression transparency. So do they have a job at the end of their apprenticeship? That is a very common question that I get asked. And what does their progression look like? When would there be an opportunity for a promotion, things like that? And then also that relates to the payment side of things. So what does the salary look like? Be transparent around that. And also, what does salary progression look like as well? Do they get an increase in salary once they've finished and things like that? So these 4 Ps are really important to keep in mind and remember when you are creating content or developing campaigns or going out to careers fairs, whatever it is, to attract your ideal apprentices. So with all that in mind, there has obviously been this new thing thrown into the mix in employer branding, which is social media. And candidates are spending a lot of time on it. So 1.5 hours is how long the average smartphone user aged 18 to 24 will scroll on TikTok per day. 1.5 hours per day. And to be honest, for a lot of us, it's probably even more than that. So it's really, as I said at the start, it's a really important thing to be wrapping your head around. And this also means that there's a massive change in the type of content that a young person is engaging with. So typically before, what might have worked was your more longer form videos about your employer brand, about, I don't know, what a typical day looks like, that are really professionally shot, that have loads of lighting, loads of cameras, things like that. But now with these social media platforms, we're seeing a massive change in the type of video content that they're engaging with. So it's no longer these professionally shot videos, it's more authentic stuff with your phone. When I go out to clients, I film with a phone, an iPhone, and natural lighting. So it feels less staged, it feels more authentic, feels like people can be themselves more. So it actually creates less barriers. You don't need to have all these cameras and all this lighting and this professional camera setup. You can just get your apprentices to start filming their daily lives, start asking questions to each other and creating content and getting that out there. It can come across inauthentic as well, as I said before, and authenticity and transparency is a massive thing for Gen Z. So I'm going to give you things on the next slide that I think that you can start implementing now. So here we go. So platforms that you can start looking at, creating content for, whatever. TikTok, as I said, massive one. The apprenticeship conversations on there is huge. Instagram, another one, and eventually YouTube. So why I put TikTok and Instagram on there is because, as I said, they're short form, much more accessible and easier to start off with. YouTube is, they do have YouTube shorts, but it is primarily long form content, and a viewer has to be really, really invested in you, in your brand, in your messaging, in order to watch that long form content thoroughly. So I would suggest starting off with the platforms where you have that shorter content on. You can actually create longer content on TikTok now. They're introducing like 10-minute videos and things like that, but it's a great place to start, and it just feels less daunting rather than creating a really long YouTube video. So these are the things that I do with my clients. Typically I will have all my videos 60 seconds maximum, because it makes it really clear, concise. A lot of people do say that Gen Z have short attention spans. Yes and no. If your content is good, if it's relating to this point here, has multiple layers of video and sound, it keeps going, it's really dopamine fulfilled, then you don't necessarily need to keep it to the 60 seconds. But I just find that's a sweet spot. Adding captions on the screen is really important. So you can start implementing all these tips just through videos on your website. You don't have to immediately start creating your own TikTok account, posting on it. You can start using these tips on your website. So that's why I put here, adding captions on the screen is so important. There is actually statistics that suggest that 80% of viewers are more likely to watch till the end of videos if captions are on the screen. So that's just an easy win that you can add. Adding trending music to the back of your videos is another great one. We've seen that with platforms like TikTok and Instagram. It just works really well. And then, as I mentioned before, multiple layers of video and sound to keep the attention is really important. Adding the effects, which I'll show you on my videos in a minute. Adding background music, adding effects, adding captions, adding loads of different shots, B-roll, all these different things make it really engaging. So things you can start to film. Day in the lives, really, really great. These videos aren't only helping attract new apprentices, they are also helping young people make more informed decisions about their career, something I'm really, really passionate about. I know that when you're at school, you can understand what teachers do, doctors do, vets do, because young people are engaging with those professions on a daily, monthly, weekly, yearly, whatever basis. But when it comes to consulting, when it comes to engineering, whatever it is, there's loads. Well, I'm not going to sit here all day and go through it, but it can be really confusing if your parents don't have connections, if you can't have access to careers events, if you can't get work experience. How the hell are you meant to understand what these different career routes and paths actually mean, what they entail, and then how are you meant to make a truly informed decision about their career? And I really think day in the life videos that are created by employers so that they're accurate and we're getting accurate information out there could revolutionize the way that young people can make decisions about their career. It really needs to be done, giving true, authentic insights to help young people understand the breadth of careers out there. It's so important. So that is a really key thing that I do stress a lot on. I'll touch on that in a minute. Job description summary videos. I'm going to show you a video that I've recently done. Long job descriptions, they can be great. They can have loads of detail in, but actually someone's probably going to skim past them. They just want quick information that is going to tell them what they need to know. I'm going to show you a quick example of one that I've recently done.
Apprentices get. These are the benefits that British Gas apprentices get. Salary progression revealed at the end. They all get a membership at the Association of Apprentices.
We get access to LinkedIn Learning. We get a discount on our energy bills. We have an impressive pension scheme which matches up to 10% of your salary.
We get access to free period products.
We get discounts for friends and family on products such as EV chargers, solar panels and boilers.
Each year we're given a slice of profit as company shares. We can access support for ourselves and our families around our physical, mental and emotional well-being.
For example, we have access to a healthcare plan and a 24-hour virtual GP.
And we can get a free eye test and glasses should we need them.
We all get the iconic British Gas blue van, along with a fuel card, a mobile phone and a tablet.
We also get access to a range of other benefits to suit our lifestyle.
As a British Gas apprentice, you'll start your apprenticeship earning £17,000. Throughout your journey, your salary will go up in increments as you hit specific learning goals, and after 3 years, you'll be earning over £40,000. You can apply for a British Gas apprenticeship and take advantage of these benefits by this website here.
So that video has now got about 400,000 views, and it just shows that what's already listed on your website, if you put that into something that's engaging, that's fun, that's different, you can attract so many more people doing it by something that's already on your website. Quite cool. Storytelling videos. How long have I got, by the way? I don't want to run over.
You're doing fine, Holly. You're doing fine.
Okay,
A couple more minutes.
Cool. So storytelling videos, another great one. As I said, this touches on the relatability point at the start. If they're seeing someone that they can relate to, they might have a similar background to them, they're going to be more likely to ask themselves, well, if they can do it, why can't I? Because a lot of them might not have role models for this route. So that's a really important one. I've got another example video, but I don't know if I've got enough time. But another one that you can easily implement, I can understand these videos take time to do, they take editing skills, etc. But you can easily implement Q&A style videos. So here's an example here that I did at an event with a solicitor apprentice. This got about 80,000 views, I think, and it was just me simply asking her questions. So this stuff doesn't have to be really complicated, but if you are wanting something like that, you don't need your own account for one. You can use influencers, you can use businesses like mine, and as Shoshana also said, you can use your own apprentices to distribute this type of content. For example, me, I'm an example of this. I used to post my experience as a Microsoft apprentice, and as a result, so many people coming to me asking questions about the Microsoft apprenticeship scheme, applying to it and then getting through, and because they were relating to me, and that is such a great way that you can do it. But yeah, you can start with these simple key things basically. And just wanted to give you an idea of this stuff actually does work. It's not just these fancy videos. This is an idea of candidate feedback that I've got from working with some of my clients. People can use social media as a way to obviously understand about your job roles, understand that you're advertising for them and they're open, but also connect with each other. So when I post my content, I find that people are commenting, as you can see here, on the videos saying, oh, I've got an assessment centre, I've got blah, blah. And then apprentices are then coming into that going, oh, I'm an apprentice here, let me know if you've got any questions. And then people were then saying to me on the videos, oh, I've landed this apprenticeship. Then someone else was commenting below, I've also landed it. And then last year with one of my clients, they then created like this Discord channel where they were all connecting. So they were all connecting with each other off the back of these videos. So it creates like a community as well. So that is what I was going to say basically in a nutshell. I wanted to invite any questions in. Have I overrun? I can't.
Holly, you're absolutely fine. Thank you. And to actually see a video, I think is brilliant. I've picked up a few things there. I think we often try to preempt what content, where to put it. And the big message I got there was, who is not better to tell us that than our existing young members of the team? Let the apprentices go and have a play around and come up with some content and tell you what would engage them, where they would be looking for that stuff. I think it is so much more powerful.
100%.
I'm also picking up, we've heard it twice today, the transparency piece. We actually actively encourage apprentices to be skeptical. And I think part of that is if they don't see the information, they will presume you're trying to hide that from them. So actually coming out front and center
100%.
with something like the salary, the expectation, actually that's quite a mind shift for me. I think maybe I come from a generation where we thought, oh, it's a bit awkward, that will come and we'll ask that question right at the end. Actually, I think with these guys, you've missed it, haven't you? If that doesn't come
100%.
front and center.
Yeah, put it out there. Don't be afraid to do that. Yeah.
Holly, thank you so much. I wonder, certainly, Chloe, we can share the links to those videos in our wrap up. But we're going to move on. Holly, thank you so much.
Thank you for
that was
having me.
brilliant.
I'm glad. Yeah, I will send this over so that the links can be distributed. Thanks, everyone.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So moving on to our third speaker on today's lineup, I'd like to introduce Joshua McLaughlin. Joshua, social media manager at The Talent People.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Great presentations by Holly and Shoshana as well. I feel quite nervous now. But yeah, great vibes. Glad to be here. I can try and share my screen now. Let's get it up. So can everyone see that? Hopefully.
We've got it.
Perfect. Okay. So yeah, as Ben just said before, I'm Josh. I'm the social media manager at Get My First Job and the Talent People. Get My First Job is how we're known to all of our candidates when we're advertising different roles. I'm showing my face on social media. And then the Talent People is how we're known by our kind of companies within our ecosystems, whether that's any of the employers that we work with or the education training providers. Over the last 5 years, these are just some stats that we've managed to achieve as a company, which is fantastic. I've been working in my role, started as a social media executive in August 2022. Time really flies. Like Get My First Job wasn't really harnessing social media at that time, but they kind of realized the value and potential in like attracting a Gen Z audience through it. So then got me on board. And then that's when the content creation and strategy, very importantly, all kind of began. So unlike Holly, I do have a video to show you, but it's more of like a montage of what we kind of do. So hopefully that will play now. Nice. I think that kind of gives a bit of a flavor. I do kind of, one thing about me is I completely lack any sort of dignity at all. So if it requires dancing or getting in front of people's faces, I'm very happy to do that. But also I'm quite a flamboyant personality anyway, so I think it's kind of a good match for social media. The girls have done a really good job so far of kind of setting the scene with social media data, how Gen Z use it, but there's just some extra like supplementary information that I think might also be quite useful as well. So there's a statistic that seems to boggle a lot of people's minds in that nearly 40% of Gen Z, and that's people born between 1997 and 2012, actually prefer TikTok and Instagram over Google for online search. This was particularly a stat around finding like restaurants and places to eat, but can also be expanded for DIY, education, opportunities, and different things like that, as the information kind of shows on the main reasons for people actually using the internet, finding information, watching videos, inspiration, researching products and brands, business related research. All of these things are things that you, your apprentices, or your companies can actually capitalize on when using social media. Then also as well, Holly was touching on TikTok. It's got a really powerful For You page. If those of you haven't used it before, kind of based on what you're engaging with, what you're liking, more of the content that you're actually watching, it delivers a constant feed, personalized feed, straight to you as well. So it can be really easy to kind of find yourself in a very like niche community. On TikTok, I see a lot of Shoshana's videos. I see a lot of Holly's videos. I think there would probably be like a lot of viewer crossover as well, since we tend to speak a lot in the same space, but equally we touch on so many different industries as well. You can belong to so many different communities and then really expand your reach on that platform in particular. Holly gave a really good stat that Gen Z typically spend like 1.5 hours on TikTok a day. The average internet user between 16 to 64 as of this year actually spends 2.5 hours a day on all types of social media. If you were to look at my own, I don't even look at my screen time anymore. It's literally appalling. I think I've had maybe like up to 40 hours plus just on TikTok a week at one point, and that's just my personal account, never mind my work one. So God forbid, I need to start wearing those blue glasses. But yeah, really interesting there that you can also see that like lots of Gen Z also spend time streaming music, listening to podcasts. I can touch on more of this just in a little bit. So the example content that we have done. So I joined Get My First Job in that summer of 2022 in August. I made sure that before like posting anything, it can be quite tempting to feel like you need to rush into a conversation. Conversations are constantly happening. TikTok's been around for a while now, so it's definitely a great platform to get involved with. But having that strategy and having an approach and potentially even batch making content like we did right at the beginning can really help. So I spent an entire month batch making content so that I was a month ahead. All of the videos that you see that kind of go out on our platforms now, even though it is just a one-man show of me doing everything for a company, is all done in advance. So we can maintain that consistency and also make sure that it's sustainable and getting the messages out. One of these videos that I made was this like studying maths video. Here's what you can become. It was done, as Holly said, in use of like a trending sound. Currently, that video has 2.7 million views and has been a really great attraction piece in getting people that might be interested in studying maths, kind of inspiring them into different roles that they might not have known about before through showing different roles on screen. And then what we've been able to do in the comments of that video is just be reactive, respond to people's concerns, questions, comments, through also linking in other videos. So essentially, you end up creating a spider web of content that then people can get sucked into and watch more of your videos through taking different angles. It could be me speaking to camera, me interviewing, as you can see here, different apprentices with BMW Group at Oxford Mini Plant for National Manufacturing Day back in September. I've also done a video here, as you can see on the right-hand side, where specifically for furniture makers, this was with the Furniture Makers Company. They're in an industry where the majority of their workforce are going to be retiring pretty soon, so they massively need like a big Gen Z push within the industry. This video garnered, I think it's at 170,000 views now, and all of our content is typically organic, which means that we don't put any money into it other than the time and resource that we already have. But through a little bit of paid spend as well, they were able to access a lot more people. It was coming up on people's feeds as a hashtag ad. And then that had really good conversion rates to their website that Get My First Job helped build for them as well. Additionally, making content around all of these different things, showcasing your apprentices is great. You can also join conversations that are already happening online. I love doing the annual Spotify Wrapped Get My First Job edition, as you can kind of see there on the laptop screen to the right-hand side. Starting your own conversations as well as joining them, super important for getting your messaging out. We've even done videos and statics on deep diving into Barbie's very eclectic and long career as well. On the bottom here are just some of the social media platforms that we use. And you might be wondering, Josh, why on earth is Spotify in there? I don't remember that being a social media platform. One of the things that Get My First Job does as well is that we put out monthly rolling Spotify ads, which is one that many employers don't necessarily think about. But essentially, these are just 30-second ads that I usually voice record and edit with another member of my team. We've done them with Channel 4, Transport for London, ORSM, a wide mix of companies and industries. And these will go out to young people that don't use Spotify Premium, so don't pay for the service. So particularly if you're looking at attracting candidates from low IMD backgrounds, it's a really interesting and quite different approach that we're trying to use there, essentially just meeting candidates where they are. These are just some of the social impact stats that we've had in 2023 alone. Holly with Apprentivia and Shoshana, the Fairy Job Mother, equally super impressive as well. But these just don't come from thin air. Strategy is really important. So just as some key takeaways of like how you could employ this yourself, either through guiding your apprentices, being the kind of spokesperson and advocate for social media internally within your own company, or trying to push your marketing team, if you do have one, in this direction. Social search and kind of utilizing that is really important. You can find on platforms like Instagram and TikTok once you start typing something into the search bar, there'll be suggested searches that other people are looking for. Kind of adopt these into your strategies, especially the really popular ones, because then you'll rank highly. TikTok and Instagram, it can be said like they are kind of important SEO like search platforms as well. People are searching a lot on them. So addressing pain points, answering questions, and highlighting your company cultures through this way is really important. Equally, social listening, super important as well. You want to take inspiration from outside of your niche. So if it's related to finance, not only looking at what other competitors might be doing in your space, but equally looking at like how other employers more generally are using social media, like the likes of big companies like Duolingo, Ryanair, that have been super successful. They've been quite reactive. You don't need to be kind of have that what's the word? Quite shock appeal with your content. But if you find your own niche, you can like just gain nuggets of inspiration through that. Then harnessing analytics as well, super important. This isn't just for company social medias, but it can be through your own LinkedIn, your own personal profiles as well. Track what type of content is resonating the most. And then kind of make small tweaks or adjustments based off of that. Data-driven content is super important. And it doesn't always matter what your follower account is, as long as you have an engaged community and you're able to sustain that. That's incredibly important. And then strategizing as well. Having a strategy that kind of links to your overall business needs and objectives. If you establish like content pillars, what is a content pillar? Like kind of episodic content that your company or you as an individual might be known for, something that people will recognize you as. People might look at me on TikTok and go, oh, it's the guy that usually wears the blue fluffy jumper that works for Get My First Job. What's he saying today? I'll always like pop up on people's feeds at roughly a regular time as well, so they'll know when to expect me as well. You'll be able to see when your audience are typically online the most and when to engage, which touches on Shoshana's point as well, in terms of like knowing when the right time to post and be active is. As Holly said before as well, showing, not just telling, super important for storytelling. You only have a few seconds to potentially grip somebody's interest right at the beginning before they swipe up on you. So being able to show that you're going to add that value, be quite interesting and provide a different take with your storytelling and having a really interesting hook is super important. And authenticity, I'll be the third person to say it again. Authenticity is so key. Gen Z can smell authenticity in the air. So I would try and stay away from writing out a heavy script in terms of like video content. Be natural, be yourself. I usually try to have a few bullet points that I want to touch on near to me just so I can stay on track. I've got ADHD, my brain goes all over the place. But yeah, just kind of being loose with it and showing that you're engaged can go a long way. And it doesn't matter what age you are. Young people might want to kind of be seen and represented by other young people, like very diverse, of all ethnicities, genders, and all of the rest of it. But equally, they would really appreciate like a more senior perspective as well. It matters more on how you convey yourself and your message rather than who you are as a person. As Holly was saying as well, there's a lot of blockers that people kind of might face when approaching this type of thing. I've spoken on a youth action forum before with Movement to Work that work with a lot of people from disadvantaged backgrounds and employers trying to like navigate barriers around that. And a lot of the blockers they seem to face are related to capacity, budgets, time, lack of skills and knowledge. So I'll repeat what Holly said. Utilizing your apprentices and your graduates and other influencers in your space, your own accounts are all incredibly important. You don't just need to use your own company account, but using people like Get My First Job, Apprentivia, and then the Fairy Job Mother as well for your own attraction campaigns can really help because we've already built up these engaged online communities for you to tap into and kind of give it a trial run before you decide whether you want to invest the time and effort into kind of making that leap into social yourselves. But I would say that social media definitely isn't going anywhere. So the sooner you join, the better. But yeah, hopefully I've done okay for time. I don't have a snazzy link like Shoshana, but if anybody would like to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm pretty easy to find. And then I've put up the tags for the social platforms there.
Josh, you have done more than fine. Thank you so much. That was another amazing talk and presentation. Something that really resonated with me. I love maths, and well done. If you can engage that many people on a social media platform on the joys and the benefits of mathematics, you have done a fabulous piece of work there. Amazing, brilliant. Lots of commonality in the themes. Something I noticed, and actually I see this with my own daughters, having subtitles and words on the screen as well. My children watch telly with the subtitles on. Now they're doing that because I think they get quite distracted, and it's just another way that they can maybe catch something. Quite often a lot of social media being accessed on trains, in public spaces, maybe the audio can't be played, but they can pick up the message. Really, really great to see the demonstrations as well. Thank you, Josh, for your time this morning. We are moving on. We have got a schedule to run to, but it looks like we will be done around 10 o'clock, which is fabulous. So thank you once again, Josh. I'm now going to pass over to our fourth guest of this morning and introduce Pete Milsom, Partnership Manager at UCAS. And if anybody has developed communication skills with the younger people, I would say UCAS are at the forefront of that with everything they do to engage Gen Z. So Pete, the floor is yours.
Great. Thanks very much, Ben. Yeah, hi there, everyone. My name's Pete Milsom from UCAS. I'm Partnerships Manager, and as you might be able to see, I'm struggling with my presentation screen here, but hopefully you can see my slide deck. Yeah, I mean, today I'm going to share with you some of the insights that we've learned from our very recently released Project Next Generation report. It looks into the drivers and the motivations and priorities and inspirations of young people when they're making decisions about their next step in education and careers. And I think it's going to validate, confirm, and echo some of the thoughts that we've heard from Shoshana, Holly, and Josh as well. But I think it'd be really interesting to see what the research says about Generation Z. But before I go on to that, I would like to also talk about a little bit of the landscape in which we're operating in as well. And before that, in fact, a little bit about UCAS and what we do. So we're actually an independent charity. I think a lot of people think that we are kind of an arm's length government operation, part of the Department for Education, but we're not. We're an independent charity, so we don't get any support from the government. We are independent of that. We've been around for over 30 years now. Millions of people come to us every year for trusted information and guidance, and it is our mission to help people make the best decisions that they can. We have anywhere between 1 million and 2 million people on our potential applicant database at any one time. Over 155,000 people attend our discovery exhibitions every year, and we're connected with over 30,000 parents and teachers and advisors across the UK. So I said that we're a charity, but we do have a commercial operation that does make money. Any profit from that is then gift aided back to the charity, and that's then reinvested into widening access to education and career paths for future generations as well. So any pound that is spent with UCAS commercially, that is a reinvestment back into the charity. And getting people the advice and guidance they need at the right time, which really is one of UCAS's core missions, is more urgent than ever. When you consider that as we head towards the end of the decade, UCAS projects that there's going to be up to 1 million applicants applying for university in 2030. And for context, in 2006, there were around 500,000. Last year, there were 750,000. And if you add into that a demographic boom in the 18-year-old population in 2030, you get to 1 million applicants. Now, that is unlikely, I feel, that universities are going to be able to scale to accommodate that amount of applicants to higher education. That would mean building something in the region of between 10 and 15 new universities in the next 6 years. So it's going to become more competitive, more complex, and people are going to need more help than ever to navigate those choices in that complex and competitive landscape, whether that's university, whether that's apprenticeships, or whether it's work. And those people that will turn 18 in 2030, they're currently in year 7 right now. So that's the first year of secondary school. And whilst there are opportunities for employers and educators and the UK economy to get this right, there are also lots of challenges as well. Challenges for employment, fair access, and with that objective, getting information to people at the time they need it. I think we're all going to need to consider how we respond to that over the next few years. And that brings me to UCAS and apprenticeships. And many of you will know UCAS as the admissions people. We're the people that help other people get into university. And we've done that for many years now. And whilst that's true, over the last 30 years, UCAS has developed, along with that admission system, a high quality, comprehensive advice and guidance service for students. So if you come to UCAS and you're interested in university, you can discover university courses. You'll get support with your application, you'll get podcasts, you'll get case studies, videos, accommodation advice, peer-to-peer support. So by the time you get to university on day 1, you have a pretty good idea of what you're going to get, and you've been very well supported on your way there. So put simply, we want to do all of that to enable people to discover apprenticeships as well. And as I said, that's made even more urgent by the complex and competitive few years that we have ahead. And not only does it feel like the right thing for UCAS to do, there's also significant demand from our audience as well for that apprenticeship opportunities, guidance and information. So we ask people when they sign up for a UCAS Hub account, and the UCAS Hub is the logged in environment that personalizes all of ucas.com together in a personalized space for people. But we ask those people that come to UCAS if they're interested in apprenticeships, and a pretty consistent 40% of them say yes, they are interested in apprenticeships. So in absolute terms, at the end of January this year, that was 440,000 people saying that they would like more information about apprenticeships. And you can see how that has stepped up since we started asking people in 2021. So demand is growing, it's substantial, and it is sustained as well. And if parents and teachers and students are already coming to us for trusted information and advice, we feel that we have an obligation to broaden our services to meet that demand. We also want to solve a number of problems along the way. And I think it's fair to say, and many of you on this call will know this, that apprenticeship still has something of an image problem. We've made great strides, I think, as a sector over the last few years with this, but I think there are still some misconceptions hanging around, and I can pick out a couple of those stats there. So 4% of the people we asked associated the word prestigious with an apprenticeship, and that's against 76% of people associating prestige with going to university. And only 57% of people believe that an apprenticeship can lead to securing a good job. That's against 87% of people that think the same of going to university. As I say, I do sense that it's getting better and things are changing, but those misconceptions do hang around. There's also the issue of getting apprenticeship pathways and information to people at school. So 1 in 3 people that we asked told us they don't get any information at all about apprenticeships at school. That's absolutely nothing. So either they didn't or they can't remember getting any information about apprenticeships at all. Either way, it's quite a worrying statistic. And even more worrying is that 1 in 5 people that we asked said that they had inadvertently closed off a potential career route through their GCSE choices by making a GCSE choice that wasn't right for them, and that has subsequently ended up in them ruling out a career for them. So it really does demonstrate, I think, the need for UCAS to use its trust and use its audience to supply that information at the time that people need it. I said earlier that for people who want to go to university, the journey is really well supported. The journey to an apprenticeship is much more challenging. So even once people have become aware of apprenticeships as an aspirational and valuable option, if they're sold on that and those misconceptions have been sold for them, they've been addressed, people find it difficult to do their research on the tens of thousands of pages that come up when you Google apprenticeships. And the same is true when people go to search for apprenticeship opportunities. With apprenticeships, jobs are posted on many different websites, many different platforms. They hang out all over the place. And then it gets to application, and they vary so much from employer to employer. People have to manage 10, 20, perhaps even 50 applications, all with different processes. And then when they've done that, when they've got themselves an interview, people feel unsupported, they feel anxious, many of them having no experience of an interview in a commercial environment, for example. And if people become anxious at any stage during this journey, then they're at risk with disengaging from the apprenticeship route altogether. They might end up on a university course that isn't quite right for them, or they might disengage with further and higher education altogether, and perhaps that isn't right for them either. So and that is not good for the challenges that we have over the next few years as well. So it's really important that we look at getting that information to people at the right time. So on to our project Next Generation Research. Now, UCAS knows a lot about the 1.5 or 2 million people that are on our potential applicant database. And that potential applicant database, by the way, that is the people that are signed up for a UCAS Hub account. That informs that potential applicant database. So we have loads of data points about the people that do that, about that audience. But with our project Next Generation Research, we wanted to conduct a future-facing study that looks into the long-term plans of the next generation and not analysing that data in the rearview mirror. So we took a quantitative and a qualitative approach, and we surveyed 1,013 to 17-year-olds across the UK. And we also spoke to some of them directly as well. And we explored the driving factors and attitudes of young people when they're making decisions about their subject choices and about their higher education plans and about their careers. And we released a series of reports, with the most recent one focusing on early careers and apprenticeships. So I'd like to share some of the headlines of this report with you. And we categorized our findings into 6 key themes. So we've got inspiration and discovery. So we looked at what inspires young people and in what form. And the big takeaway from this was the importance of getting people engaged with discovery early so that their future options aren't limited. As I said, 1 in 5 people told us that they ruled out a potential career path via those GCSE choices which weren't right for them. Feelings and happiness. Young people are engaged by enjoyment as a motivator, and it's valuable to be able to use this as a way of connecting with the next generation. Experience, and this is the need for experience. Young people don't have very much of it, but they do recognise how important it is to be able to make informed decisions, to be able to get that experience. Confidence, and we learned how to best give people the knowledge they need to feel confident. Independence and empowerment. So we found out a lot about the role of parents and other influences on people's decisions. And control. We learned how to give young people a sense of control when perhaps they don't feel like they do have control, and what we can do to make people prepared so that they do feel in control. And I would urge you to download and read the full report on ucas.com, which goes into a lot of depth about these things. So do have a look. But here are some highlights that I picked out today. So we've heard about channels and the sources that people are going to use for inspiration and discovery. So we asked people about their post-18 choices. We asked what format they wanted to receive the information in, and where they saw adverts that particularly resonated with them. And there was a wide variety, as you can see there. Social media came out top for this group, perhaps not that unsurprisingly, considering what we've heard today. But a close second came conversations and interactions with people directly from the source. And written text there takes a surprising priority. And over 1 in 5 people said that they prefer step-by-step instructions. And you can see in the blue box there on the right what the top 10, what the top places are where people find adverts that really resonate with them. But I think the key takeaway here is that it really is a mix that we see there. So it's not just one thing that we can connect with Gen Z on. I think it's all about the mix that we see there. And people really want inspiration and information from channels that expose them to real people, real experience and advice. And then we looked at brands and what kind of brands and advertising that resonate with young people. So we asked them for examples of adverts that they liked and remembered. And those that cut through were ones that were inspirational, such as Nike, adverts that do something a little bit differently, like Gymshark, but also adverts that tap into people's motivations around social responsibility and promoting mental health as well. So do have a look at the report for some more detail on this. And linking back to one of our key themes, people are thinking a lot about enjoyment and happiness, not just now, but for the future as well. Finding a career that will bring people happiness is really important to this cohort of people, of young people, with 47% of people choosing enjoying their job as the number one factor in considering which career path they take in the future. And this increases the older they get as they go through that 13 to 17-year-old demographic that we asked. And what they enjoy right now is driving their more immediate decisions, but the future is certainly high on their priorities, as well as overall happiness. People want a stable career, stable finances whilst doing something they love, and for a cause that they believe in, with a sense of community, and also a sense of control and independence. So they want a lot, I think, but that's probably no different to many of us. But it's really interesting, I think, that happiness is the key driver here, over and above things like earning potential or average salary. This is a really mental health conscious generation that we're looking at, and they really do value happiness. And then we go on to another one of our key themes, and that's experience. So we found out that that young people find it really challenging to imagine what work is like when they're at school. They just can't make that leap, and it's really challenging for them to imagine themselves in the workplace. So there's real value, and young people really do value those experiential opportunities that can help put themselves in their career of the future. And they also really value experience as a means of getting where they need to be. So they realize it's important, both as a means to getting to that career path that they want, but also to help them put themselves in the workplace. We identify 3 types of experience that young people value. So that's direct, indirect, and past experiences. And all 3 came up as being very valuable, but the importance here not only of direct experience, but also getting inspiration from peers and parents who have taken a particular career pathway stands out as well. So again, we're seeing a mix here, perhaps no one type of experience. As I've said, there's loads of information in the report, so do read it and please download it and have a good old read into our findings behind our Project Next Generation research. But just a few takeaways that, or it's kind of my top 3, I suppose, that I'd like to give to you today. So it's really important that we bring the workplace to life when we're connecting with Gen Z, perhaps engaging with schools to offer real life programs, perhaps using existing apprentices to bring what it's like to be an apprentice at a certain workplace to life for people, but really make sure that people have an authentic experience of what it's like to be in a particular workplace. Connecting across multiple channels, and we have seen that today with Shoshana and Holly and Josh, and they've talked about social media as well. But as I said, I think it really came through in our research. It is about the mix, so it's about real life communication as well as digital communication as well. And coming on from that, then people don't want to be broadcast to necessarily. I think there is a place for the traditional, I suppose, how-to videos, but people want to interact, they want a conversation, and they want those authentic experiences with their peers, with people that are kind of near to peer, I suppose, already at a workplace, but perhaps I look a little bit like them. And even from senior people as well, people who have had that experience, like other influences in their life, like parents, teachers, and advisors. So it really is all about the mix. It's all about the conversation, and it's about bringing those authentic experiences in the workplace to life.
Pete, thank you so much for your contribution there. We are super excited, particularly at First Intuition, about the credibility, the consistency, hopefully it won't feel like apprentices and university applications are divided. It's going to bring people together, which I think is a great step forward. And I really liked your thought on happiness. Maybe that's a real good takeaway for me, to try and promote happiness in everything we do to try and engage those people. We will share the link to download the full report so people can go and read that at their leisure. But to wrap up for the last part of our session, because we're going to finish at 10 o'clock today, we always bring on the professional bodies. And if anybody has got a tough job engaging with Gen Z, it is people convincing them that the world of accountancy is fun and a route to happiness. We've got some final guests. We've got Karen from the ACCA. Good morning, Karen Smith.
Hello there. Hi, it's great to be here. I'm afraid my colleague has had to ring off. She's presenting at another session. So it looks like we're missing the content that we would have had, but I can talk off cuff. I'm afraid I don't have any slides to speak to. And we are kind of almost at the end, so what I'll do is just share some front of mind thoughts from me. I'm really sorry, we did have loads and loads of examples to share, and yes, some slides that maybe we can share afterwards. But I suppose for us, it's busting those myths around accountancy, and it's all about the attractiveness of the profession. And engaging with Gen Z is so critical to us, because obviously they were growing. I think it was 2 years ago, there were over 70% of our new entrants into ACCA. So yeah, obviously they're a critical mass now. So there was 4 real pillars that we worked to. So the first one was getting closer to our Gen Zs by obtaining first-hand input and not just relying on what you hear anecdotally. So the things like engaging Gen Zs as apprentices and interns, I would really, really advocate. Tap into the Gen Z you already have in your network. But I had this dream of a Gen Z panel, a consultation research panel that was quite raw in my mind. But my wonderful colleague Jo, that maybe we can invite back at a future meeting, as she took this idea. Jo is one of our lead researchers in-house and has set up a fantastic panel with over 300 Gen Zs from our key markets across the world, that some are known to us and some aren't. So we're getting some kind of really exciting input from those that maybe have loosely considered accounting as a profession and can tell us what's putting them on, what puts them off. So Jo does have some fantastic insight, if we can get that somehow to share on some of the key learnings. We've passed the pilot stage of the panel now. So yeah, this is something that will be an opportunity for us and some of our employer partners to engage with on an ongoing basis. So that's really exciting, but sorry, we can't, we haven't got too much time to touch on that. The other bit, the second part that I think is really key, is to flex your brands and tone of voice to speak to Gen Zs. So it's about updating your brand and tone of voice. And that is one thing that made our executive team quite nervous. But I suppose in my mind, and some of this is going to be quite repetitive, what you've already heard from the fantastic speakers, but that should be quite reassuring that we're all on the same page. In my mind, if it works for Gen Zs, it's going to work for anybody, whatever your age, because it's all about clarity, using plain English, getting straight to the point, and using some real life examples. So, I mean, who doesn't love that? So we took inspiration from brands like Monzo, who created a brand personality that really won over Gen Zs and millennials and became the most recommended bank amongst those markets in the UK, kind of really, really quickly. And the other thing that's really important is using more inclusive language. Diversity and inclusion is so key, is so important to Gen Zs, and they need to see that in your employer brands. Identifying relevant niche communities and aligning content with their motivations and aesthetics when you're going into a social media strategy is really key. And an example of the first thing that appealed to us was a community called Gals Who Graduate, and again trying to encourage more females, encourage more diversity, and it was really aligning our content with some of those. If you take a quick look, you'll see what I mean. They're very specific, so it's really kind of fitting, slotting ourselves in there. And then there were several content pillars that when it came to building a content strategy that aligns with Gen Z's motivators and levers. And some of this will sound really familiar for what you've heard this morning, but personality, digital influencers have that in droves, but you can also bring in the personality leverage of your existing employees and senior leaders and really let that come through in your content. Be informative. We've heard about how Gen Z's use social media for searching, especially for careers. So we need to offer that same value exchange with information-wise as we would on a website. So creative use of meaningful content like industry updates, career support, day in the life of. Be transparent, be more direct, more on the nose content that doesn't rely on the audience making psychological connections when you try and be too clever in your advertising. Be relatable, lean into relevant Gen Z events that are going on, move away from polished brand assets to be more authentic and human, and the content should be driven by connection. Be ambitious, talk about jobs they can do now, but also show examples of fast progression, and be entertaining. You don't have to be hilarious to be entertaining. You just need to be able to tell a story. So entertain, it doesn't have to be slapstick. So maybe things like serialization is a really good way to bring in and engage your audiences. So we do have a few examples of really different content that we've run with digital influencers as well. Some of that works better than others, but the beauty is it's quick, you can fail fast, you can learn lessons and you can move on. So just be brave and do it, I suppose. We're always keen to work with employer partners at ACCA. So anybody is hearing this and it's resonating, we're all trying to get a similar message out around the just what exciting opportunities there are within the profession. So do reach out. So yeah, that's all from me. Just on time, but yeah, lots of content and examples we can pass on through Ben and others to share with you.
Karen, thank you. An excellent job on the anchor leg, bringing it home on time. Thank you for that. We will certainly share the slides. And as you say, Karen, I do find it reassuring that we have heard similar themes all the way through. Great to hear the ACCA is on board. I like the thought of a panel of Gen Zers. I think sometimes we run the risk of actually not treating them as individuals, and there are differences in every generation.
That's the other thing. They're not just one big homogenous group of people that all think the same. Yeah.
But some key messages, again, authenticity, being transparent, being inclusive. And if Gen Z is the catalyst for all organizations to progress more quickly with that stuff, I think that is to be welcomed and praised, actually. What a lovely way to finish today. I can see Gareth has crept in at the back. I'm just going to share one observation from us. We recorded some videos at First Intuition a few weeks ago, and Gareth did a stellar job. And people have said, don't be scared to have people in senior positions talking on socials. Gareth was great. He is an entertainer. But our apprentice, Ryan, I have to say, stole the show. All of our internal comms, it hasn't been officially released yet. Look out for this. It will be coming out. But all of our internal comms, the people have seen it, have really praised Ryan, our apprentice, for what a great presentation and talk he did. So I think engaging both ends of the organizational spectrum and maybe getting them on a TikTok video together at some point would be a fantastic way to promote the benefits, the potential, and the ability to work with Generation Z. Gareth, I'm going to say final words from you.
Well, I'm looking forward to my TikTok shoot. You don't call them videos on TikTok. I've learned that much, but something that I need to engage with. Ben, thank you so much for chairing. Been a brilliant session. I thought the speakers were all fantastic. Really impressed with that. And thanks to the audience, as ever, for joining us. But thanks to all of our speakers. And I look forward to the next one. We've got some more great speaker forums coming up later in the year. Have a good day, everyone.